Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk County Party. With us, again, is our good friend, Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, gentlemen, I want to begin by talking a little bit about two things that are breaking as we speak. The lessons of the 2024 elections and President-elect Trump's nominees for various cabinet and administrative positions. So, what's the great lesson? The great lesson is, other than the Rasmussen poll, maybe there's one or two others, the pollsters got it wrong. Why I can only speculate, because maybe people don't respond to polls, or they don't like to respond to polls, or the polling methodology has changed given the new advances in technology. But you can't rely on the pollsters. Number two, the media has lost considerable influence in shaping popular opinion to then influence decision-making by voters. That's the second lesson. Third lesson is you can't use lawfare to destroy a political opponent and not have reverberations through the populace against that kind of mean-spirited, vindictive conduct. So those are my views of the lessons. Jesse, what are your thoughts on that?
The lessons, I think that, it's a pleasure to be here. The lessons I've come away with is, and maybe I will encapsulate them in one statement. The voters of America stated that they prefer gasoline at $2 a gallon or less, and their grocery visits at $200 or more less than they're offended by a mean tweet any day. I think that this election proved a number of things. The lessons I take out of it, and I always am very, very keen on this, is that the voters are smarter than progressives, the elitists, and the Democrats think. They can no longer the Democrats think that they can take voting blocks and the voters for granted. They believe that because of their partnership with an alliance with the legacy media, the elite big tech that censors our speech, that they can, herd around voters like cattle and build narratives. But the American people know what a lie is and what a bad narrative is. I actually do believe that this was the election we would have had in 2020, if not for COVID and states, especially blue states, manipulating the election law on a weekly basis and sometimes here in New York on a daily basis. The lessons I've also learned is that there is faith and hope in America's promise and in the promise of the American dream and in American exceptionalism. To boil it down, the Democrats don't get it. They're tone deaf. The voters are smarter than they think, and they know when they're being taken for granted. And their partners, no matter how loud they are in the legacy media or big tech and social media, they can't change what voters are feeling in their pocketbooks, feeling at the pump, feeling at the grocery stores, or feeling unsafe in their home communities.
Eric, what are your thoughts?
So I think there are a number of lessons to be learned here. I think first is that the American people, irrespective of what the progressive left or how the progressive left likes to compartmentalize people, the average American does not define themselves solely by their race, their gender, or their ethnicity. People are complex, and people have a lot of issues, and they think a lot of different issues about different things about different issues. I mean, perfect. And plus, I mean, to Jesse's point, which I think is an excellent one, Basically, the Democratic message is don't believe your lying eyes, believe what we're telling you. People saw the prices at the supermarket. People saw men playing women's sports. But even on the issue, if you look at how Kamala Harris did in the various demographics, just to go back to their view of the world, Kamala Harris's numbers went down in every single category, race, gender, religion, with one exception, and that was white suburban college women. And that's because they spoke to the, all about the abortion issue. But overall, in terms of the women vote, they picked up, she only increased the percentage of the women vote by 1%. So what does that tell us? While Democrats made a terrible mistake by believing that since the majority of the country is pro-choice, if you go to any red state, even including Florida, which lost on that proposition because you needed 60% for it to pass, they got something like 57 or 58%. So even in the deepest red states where people vote for women's reproductive rights or pro-choice, however you want to define it, and you only increase the percentage of the vote by 1% amongst women, that tells you that even for people for whom abortion is an important issue or believe one way in an issue, that's not the only issue they care about. The way Kamala Harris ran her campaign, it was like, that's the only issue people care about. We will only talk about abortion. And then the other issue we talk about is the Trump threat to democracy, and he's a fascist. And this gets back to the point of people not believing their lying eyes. People understand there's a big difference between somebody being a jerk and somebody being Hitler. So when the Harris campaign is going around saying, this guy's not a jerk, this guy's a Nazi, this guy's a fascist, and people are saying, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Those protesters, those anti-Semitic pro-Hamas protesters on the college campuses and across our cities, those are Harris voters. Those aren't Trump voters. Those administrators at those colleges, those are Harris voters. Those aren't Trump voters. It was Kamala Harris who didn't pick Josh Shapiro. Now, we don't know for certain that it wasn't because of his being Jewish, but we do know this. It's one of two things. Either she didn't pick him because he was Jewish and moderate, or she's totally clueless because everyone else in the country knew how important Pennsylvania was. He's an extraordinarily popular governor. It was the absolute right choice to have made. It made perfect political sense, and yet she still didn't do it. So are you anti-Semitic, or are you appeasing the anti-Semites, or do you just have really horrendous judgment? And the more that she went out there and talked, the more she persuaded people she really has horrendous judgment.
Well, Jesse, you and Eric and I have talked about this previously. You know, the Democrats are now engaged in the self-flagellation.
It's a food fight.
We call it the blame game. You know, the Harris camp versus the Biden camp versus the Obamas, the Clintons are trying to hide. Some of the Hollywood actors and some of the singers and dancers and other people were well paid off by the campaign.
Oprah needed the money.
Yeah, well, Oprah needed the money.
She needed the money.
Needed the money. I mean, the idea that they spent, what was it, $1 billion?
She raised $1 billion and ended up $20 million in debt.
I mean, how ridiculous. That means there were a lot of grifters surrounding the Democratic Party. But I want to talk about the foolishness of the Democrats and irresponsibility of the Democrats. And I want to talk about the fact that they hid from the American people that Joe Biden was incapable of being president of the United States in any kind of effective way protecting the interests of this country, whether domestically or in foreign affairs. They hid that. I want to also point out that Kamala Harris had obligations under the 25th Amendment to call this the attention of the cabinet and do what was necessary to move him off center stage and to put in a regime that actually was competent and capable. The family covered it up. The media covered it up. The Democratic Party covered it up. The Democratic leadership covered up. They kept covering it up until it couldn't be covered up anymore when it blew up on the debate stage. And then these great champions of democracy then rammed down the throat of the 14 million people
14 million.
who voted for Biden.
Well, there's an
staged convention.
There's an interesting backstory that's coming out over that one.
What's that?
So apparently, and this seems to have been corroborated by a number of people, but I'm sure somebody will write the book. When Biden was approached by Pelosi, Obama didn't have the courage to do it. He sent Pelosi to do it and basically kicked him to the curb and explained to him, if you don't drop out, we're going to invoke the 25th Amendment and we're going to get the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment and kick you out. So you really should step aside. He was so incensed by that when after he decided to do it and announced that he was going to not run, he knew that both Obama and Pelosi had kicked him to the curb and wanted to nominate somebody potentially other than Harris. They were under the guise of, we'll have an open primary, but we'll just make sure a person comes in. The rumor is that Obama wanted Senator Kelly from Arizona. He purposely said, I'm endorsing Kamala Harris.
To blow it up.
Just to play with them. Just to torture them. And that's how Harris got the nomination. Biden made her.
It was payback.
It was payback.
Jesse, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, listen, for one thing here is the Democrats, I enjoy that they're playing the blame game. I do give credit to Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader of the Democrat caucus in the House of Representatives. In front of his caucus, he took responsibility for the Republicans maintaining their House majority for the next Congress. That's what leadership is. That's what being accountable is. These Democrats, Pelosi, Obama, everybody that was involved in ousting and undertaking the coup d'etat of a presidential nomination in the presidency from Joe Biden needs to look in the mirror. All the policy wonks that are now ingrained into the Democratic Party, the AOCs of the world and the squad, they need to look in the mirror because they're the ones who are responsible. They're the ones who are accountable for this loss. But they won't do that. They'll blame the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. They'll blame Joe Biden. They'll blame the way Kamala Harris undertook her campaign, when really it's them themselves for what they did since 2020 on. And also, the real true reason is because if they look in the mirror, they're going to realize that not only are they the problem, they're the problem because they advance policies on all levels that are failures. And the American people rejected that at historic levels, whether it be inflation, the economy, an unsecure border, lawfare to take out your political enemies. That's truly the threat to democracy. What Pelosi, Obama, and the elitists and the Democrats and progressives did to Biden, that's a threat to democracy. The way we've handled the Middle East through appeasement under the Biden administration and the Obama administration, this Green New scam that they wanted to do, they wanted to the woke agenda, which I believe more than anything else, the American people have finally said, end this woke agenda. It doesn't work. It ends with DEI. It ends because we need to be back to being sensible and common sense and being able to have comedy again, even for just comics. And I think the big winner here is going to be American exceptionalism. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I hope you're right, but I mean, you're attributing to the left a degree of self-awareness I don't think they have.
They're not. They don't have it. You can watch it.
I mean, you listen to them, and there's their explanation. We didn't go far enough left. We didn't abandon Israel more.
We didn't do our messaging properly.
Yeah,
exactly. Whatever that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the message was.
Messaging sucked from the messaging came from bad policies.
Right.
Exactly.
But because they're so morally and intellectually superior to the rest of us, it's not their fault. It's the majority of America who's just stupid.
You know what the line is, Jesse and Eric? The line is, we have disappointed. We, the voters, have disappointed
the
elites.
They're blaming the voters. Yeah. Anyone they're mocking their voters.
Yeah, they're voting against their own interests. So how can they do that?
And I'll be honest with you, the more they speak, the better it comes for Republicans. As a Republican leader, I invite them to continue into this circular firing squad. Continue to alienate the voters they've already alienated. They've already alienated the historical traditional Democrats in their parties, the blue dog Democrats in their parties, the Reagan Democrats, which are now Trump Democrats, blue collar Democrats in the party. They have now redefined the Democratic brand as a brand of progressive elitists who are tone deaf and only care for even less than the 1%.
Well, Jesse,
they care for themselves.
Jesse, that's a very good segue, and I want to get your thoughts and Eric's thoughts on this. So you pick up the paper or you listen to the radio or the television, and all of a sudden you find out that the resistance against Trump has begun again. You have governors like Pritzker forming a committee, a pact to deal with this. You have Newsom running around Washington trying to drum up support for this. You have Hochul in New York. You have the governor of Massachusetts doing this. So they're beginning the resistance.
Mayor of Chicago?
Mayor of Chicago. I mean, Mayor of Chicago.
Well,
Hochul
walked it back real quick as soon as she realized she needed federal funding to help rebuild the New York City infrastructure. And all of a sudden, the resistance kind of dissipated.
Yeah, but our esteemed Attorney General of the state of New York is saying she's going to use lawfare again to go after Trump. I mean, they don't learn their lesson. Lawfare is a disaster, not only for them, but it's a disaster for the American people and the future of America's role in the world and being a united, cohesive country.
But politically, for Letitia James, it actually makes sense. If she's going to primary Hochul for the Democratic nomination to be governor, which I think she will, she has to run to Hochul's left. And the Democratic voter in the primary tends to be far more progressive than the rest of the state. So politically, that position for her to take is quite rational. As insane as it is, it's a rationally political statement.
As you've been saying, I think nothing more than we saw with these blue state governors was actually the kickoff of the 2028 presidential Democratic nomination process. I do also believe that it's about primary politics. Now, listen, I have not seen Kathy Hochul and Letitia James come together on anything in the last 3 to 4 years. I have no empirical evidence about this. I think we discussed it last week on the show, but there must be something afoot here for these two to come together. And I agree with you, Eric, to some point, but let's not put out there or put aside that there's a possibility of a deal here. One of us, Letitia, maybe you run for New York City mayor, and I'll maintain my governor, and I'll maintain my gubernatorial aspirations in 26, because we've heard the rumors about Cuomo jumping in. We've heard the rumors of Letitia James being lured into the New York City race for mayor. Right now, I believe that's going to, it'll be see how that works out, because it's almost, I almost found it weird, or there's a problem here politically for these two forces to come together against the Trump term 2 coming forward, because it was so fast and they did it together. I could see if they did it independently, but they didn't. They've done it this way, like the mayor of Chicago coming out and saying, "Now I understand this. I'm a sanctuary city, and Trump's policies are not just an attack on illegal migrants; they're an attack on black families." If I'm Governor Pritchard, I'd be worried about the Chicago mayor. Either the Chicago mayor is worried about himself, or he's looking for aspirations too, because number one, that's just stoking more of a racial divide. And how does a sanctuary city hurt black families? I don't see it at all.
Well, black families responded to that by voting in greater numbers for Trump.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think black families are victimized by sanctuary cities.
Clearly,
they are,
and they're victimized by crime. They're the most victimized group by crime. They're the most victimized group by failed educational system.
The costs are enormous to food these people, to house these people, to give them education, to give them medical care. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. So, of course, blacks, you see it all the time. Blacks in Chicago saying, get these people out of here. They don't belong here. Get online like everybody else and stop taking our jobs. And
that's why I believe that these actions taken by these blue state governors and Letitia James and the mayor of Chicago is really the kickoff of either their personal race for offices or for higher office.
I agree with
And that's why we go.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, let me raise this issue to you. And we'll have to go into more depth when we pick up the second segment of the show. You know, there's the politics of electability, as all three of us know, and there's the politics of governance.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they're related, but they're different. Because after the election is over, you have to sit down and figure out how you're going to govern responsibly and in the public interest. So we're going to take a break now. I want to pick up with that because that becomes a very important discussion for us, Jesse and Eric, about some of the appointments that are being proffered by President-elect Trump. We'll pick that up in a moment. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us for more important and interesting conversation.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
Lights, camera, innovation. Walt Disney Studios chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform the movie-making process. Together, we kept a remote production hub in Hawaii and sync with a team in California to bring Lilo and Stitch to theaters this summer. This is picture-perfect collaboration. This is Walt Disney Studios with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Build professional skills this semester with Adobe Creative Cloud and create standout work both in and out of the classroom. Save big on professional creativity tools. Students get 65% off Adobe Creative Cloud, including Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, Acrobat Pro, and 20+ creative apps. No matter what project you're working on, Adobe Creative Cloud apps can help you take it to the next level. Visit adobe.com/student to learn more.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss.
Oof, like wind in your hair carefree.
Oh, like using Clorox Disinfecting All-Purpose Cleaner in the home carefree.
Yes.
Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox Carefree.
He's on a roll now.
Spit toothpaste on the faucet.
You got it. You got it.
Peanut butter on the light switch.
Oh, spritz, spritz.
Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back.
Use as directed.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We're back on Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party and the vice chair of the New York State Party. And with us is Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So we left off as I began the conversation at the end of the first segment. And what did I say? Who remembers?
Everything.
We're
going to discuss something.
Oh, thanks. That was very helpful.
We're going to talk about the appointments.
Oh, the appointments.
Yeah.
And right, thank you.
Campaign.
You know, you reach a certain point in time, I guess I have to pull Article 25 against me, Amendment 25 against me, Jesse.
You don't look a day over 82.
I'm already there. I'll remove myself. So look, this is the issue. There's a politics of electability. There's a politics of governance. They're related, but they're different. You have to take responsibility that you have to govern in the larger public interest. This is not about petty politics. This is about making us a strong country, a cohesive country, a united country, a land of opportunity, and strong enough to face down and beat our enemies who want to destroy us. Now, in that regard, there have been a number of appointments by President-elect Trump, some of which I agree with wholeheartedly, others of which give me real pause. the most obvious ones that I agree with wholeheartedly is Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. I think an extraordinary man, a great personal story like Jesse, coming from Cuban refugees from Castro's tyranny. A great success, a very smart guy, a good friend to the American people, a good close friend of Eric's, a wonderful man, an excellent choice, and a man of wisdom and common sense. So I think Secretary of State Rubio is absolutely wonderful, and it sends out a message to our enemies that you have common sense and strength there, particularly to China. Then you have Congressman Michael Waltz, also a good friend of Eric's and ours, and he's going to be the National Security Advisor. Smart, military man, understands national security, national intelligence, also what I would describe as being a China hawk, which is understanding the threat of China. Excellent choice as far as I'm concerned. And I think those are two really good choices. And I'll let Jesse and Eric talk in a moment about who their other top choices are for the good choices, because I really believe those are very, very fine choices. My negatives, and I have to qualify this, is the nominee for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and the nominee for Attorney General, what's his name again?
Matt Gaetz.
Matt Gaetz. I try to repress that. Okay.
And you have Tulsi Gabbard at Intelligence.
Okay. So let me talk to you about Hegseth. My initial reaction is
Hegseth.
I need a name change. I was going to change my name to Whitney, but then I looked in the mirror and I realized, gentlemen, I don't look like a Whitney at all. So I'm stuck with Weinberg. But if you need a name change to remember, he has to work on that. But his resume is absolutely outstanding. He was a captain. He earned 2 Bronze Stars. He was a combat veteran in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was a supporter of veterans. He wrote an excellent book about wokeism and diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Pentagon and how it was making us weaker militarily. So he's a first-rate guy. And I understand why Trump would want him, because he's a good guy to clean up a house, and he understands the politics and the public relations of Washington. So my initial response was, he's not heavy enough. You need a general or an admiral or somebody like that to do that job, or a businessman who knows how to run a major nationwide or international company. Because remember, what the job of Secretary of Defense is, you're not only a military advisor, but you're a manager. Well, and that's a very big deal.
Well, that was LBJ's thought when he appointed McNamara during the Vietnam War. That did not work.
No, I understand that. But I'm talking about the thinking. Yeah. But remember, and Secretary James Forrestal committed suicide. He was the Secretary of War. I think he's the first Secretary of Defense. He committed suicide because the job is overwhelming. The burden of responsibility is awesome to protect and defend the United States and to run this huge, vast bureaucracy with this
3 million employees. 3 million employees.
Yeah, so I don't know if the nominee is up to that on that level. But I think he's a first-rate man. I think he's a true patriot, and I like him enormously. Let's move on to Matt Gaetz. I'm against the appointment of Gaetz. I don't know why Trump did this. In my humble opinion, he's wasting good political capital. He's putting Thune in a bad position because they're going to look to Thune to deliver this vote. Thune's not going to be able to do that because you're going to have Republican senators peeling off, a couple of already making noises about doing that. It's not Thune's problem that you have somebody who shouldn't have been nominated in the first place, that you're not going to be able to get the Republican caucus united behind him. And, of course, the Democrats will be against him. You're going to put this young man through a hearing process. There will be either by leaks or subpoena the report that he was trying to evade from the Ethics Committee about his alleged bad conduct. This does not work for Trump. It will divide the Republican Party in the Senate caucus. It gives ammunition to your enemies, the political enemies, the Democrats, that will use this to fundraise, to rally their base. And the 2026 Senate campaign has already begun. You have 33 seats, 20 Democrats have strike that. 20 Republicans have to be defended, 13 Democrats. This is serious business. Why do you give ammunition to your enemy. Those are my thoughts on those two particular nominees. Pete, I can handle. Gates, I can. And by the way, Speaker McCarthy is a first-rate guy. He was sabotaged by Gates. There are a lot of people who will never forget or forgive that. He doesn't have any friends in the House of Representatives but a handful of right-wing extremists. And he has very few friends in the Senate as well, because a lot of people like Kevin McCarthy, who's a great leader. Eric, your thoughts then to Jesse.
Well, they're under the category of some other excellent picks. Lee Zeldin for the EPA. Bravo, Lee. Very happy for him. Good friend, good American, good patriot, and will make a wonderful chief of the EPA. Governor Noem for Homeland Security. Well, we do know that no stray dogs are going to be walking across the southern border. That's for sure. Tom Homan, border czar.
Excellent choice.
Great pick. Great pick. Elise Stefanik at the UN. Home run. Grand slam. Check plus. A great pick. The one nominee that you didn't mention under the category of
not so
why
great
was Tulsi Gabbard. So Tulsi Gabbard, we should remember, was the co-chair of the Bernie Sanders for President campaign in 2016. She actually left her post at the DNC because they weren't supporting Bernie enough, so she should get help Bernie. The other is that she is a Putin apologist. She believes the war in Ukraine is Ukraine's fault. She is an Assad of Syria, an Assad apologist. She has serious misgivings about Israel attacking or defending itself against Assad, and had and questions whether or not Assad is responsible for the Syrian civil war. These are bizarro positions to take. And I don't know that she has the background to be able to be intelligence czar. And it's going to be interesting. She's going to be in the same room with giants like Rubio and Waltz. I don't know what she's going to add to the conversation. Oh, also Radcliffe for CIA. Great choice.
Great choice.
Great choice.
You know, bravo for that. So I don't want to give Tulsi Gabbard a pass because I think that's also a poor choice. Just on Hexeth, look, the president, when he makes a nomination, is owed great deference. I share some of your concerns about him, but to me, he's more of a head-scratching kind of appointment, and I don't see any good faith basis necessarily to reject the nomination.
No, I don't think you should reject him at all.
So he'll probably, and time will tell whether or not he's up for the task, and it'll be up to, and history will decide whether or not Trump made a good pick or a bad pick. But as it relates to Gabbard and Getz, we know these are bad picks.
Jesse.
Well, the premise of the question that we were leading into is the differences of campaigning and being on a campaign trail and then governing. I think the one thing that we can say is that when it came to Donald Trump in this campaign, you're getting what you expected. He told you what he was going to come do. He has had the First America PAC in place since 2020. That has been trolling to make sure that they don't make the same mistake that they made in his first term, which was maybe they were surprised, maybe they weren't surprised, but they left too many of the same people, we'll call them the deep state, the bureaucracy, in place. They left too many Washington, D.C. insiders in key positions that came back to haunt the administration in its efforts to legislate. And then, if you want to wash yourself off of the Donald Trump stink in the main media or in big business, you had to attack him and write a book. So that's what, those people did. This is a complete direct assault on the bureaucracy of Washington, D.C. That and the fact that he is looking to decentralize the operations in D.C., placing some of these departments outside the bubble or the bubble of the Washington K Street atmosphere. Everyone can have a pick, can have a difference or 4 or 5 with any of these nominees. I, for one, believe that our Suffolk County's hometown favorite son, Lee Zeldin, will be instrumental in the President Trump's agenda to get the economy going again. He has an exceptional environmental record. It's balanced with economic growth. He knows the importance of having a regulation that works and having a regulation that actually cripples businesses. A lot of the nominees you've already spoke about. I also want to speak about Susan Wiles.
Oh, we forgot her. Yes, excellent choice.
Excellent choice. And like I said, I believe if there's one person that has been able and demonstrated the ability to put guardrails and corral Donald Trump, that has been Susie Wiles. And that is important. You also have individuals like Stephen Miller, James Blair. For me, I know I have had the pleasure of meeting Dan Scavino on several occasions, and I believe that he's going to play an important role here. So the deputy squad looks pretty good. But here's the thing. I think America, in a way, voted to blow up the swamp. The status quo needs to go. And the status quo did not serve President Trump properly in the first term. Maybe he wasn't prepared to deal with the establishment and the status quo. He sat in that office for 4 years. He sat during a difficult time during COVID, and his foreign policy was successful. His economic policies were successful. And as I said earlier in the show, I believe that this election was reflective of the election he would have had in 2020 if COVID had not come down the pike. I believe that we have to give this president the opportunity and his nominees. I don't agree with all of them. I've said on this show on many occasions, and I'm not going to be hypocritical, that I've not been the biggest fan of Matt Gaetz. I think what he did for self-promotion and for self-interest in disrupting the House by leading the charge to take down Speaker McCarthy was reprehensible, and I believe led to the fact that we're going to have one of the slimmest majorities in the House of Representatives because they put in front of the American people that the Republicans can't get their own leadership in order. How can they take care of American people? Fortunately, I believe that Trump had coattails there. But I think that we got to give this team a chance. I'm interested to see what moves forward. There's not going to be a great, what I did hear from both of you is I heard the word great, outstanding on more than I heard problematic or don't agree. So I think that in any new administration, we have to move forward and see how it goes. These people may survive confirmation. They may not survive confirmation. They may fail in the first 6 months. They may fail in the first year. I, for one, as an American first and a Republican chairman second, I'm hoping that they're all successful, because if they're successful, the Trump administration is successful, and America is successful.
I mean, the only thing I would add about Matt Gaetz is that the timing of his resignation from Congress was not by accident.
2 days before the report was to be released.
And then he's falling back on the House rule that once you leave the House, the Ethics Committee no longer is empowered to investigate you, has no jurisdiction over you, and therefore the report becomes confidential. Well, as the issue on jurisdiction, we're not talking about jurisdiction. We agree that the House can no longer punish him. He's not a member of the House. But there is a document out there that exists that is relevant to the issue of his fitness to be Attorney General.
They can subpoena that document.
Well, will the Senate? The Senate should demand that the document be turned over. And if the House says that our rules prohibit us from doing that, then the question should be put to Gaetz, or the choice should be put to Gaetz. If you want to be considered for AG, you will authorize the House to release the report. And if you don't release the report, then we're not going to be able to act on your...
But it goes back to what I said earlier, Eric and Jesse. Puts Thune in a very bad position, because if this nomination goes forward and they schedule...
Well, it goes to committee. Remember, it goes to committee first.
Right. But the committee is one has to do the hearings,
right,
and do a recommendation, and may have a vote on the qualifications.
Right, but it's the committee that should be demanding the report.
But this is the box. This is the box. The box is the committee, if they're going to do their job and not whitewash it, has an obligation to find out what's in that report.
Correct.
So it puts the Republicans on the Senate committee under the leadership of Thune, who's the majority leader, about are they going to use the subpoena power of the Senate to subpoena House records.
No, I don't think they have to subpoena it. I think they put it to Gaetz. Either you authorize them to release the report, or we can't advance your nomination.
Well, that's interesting.
Well, that's the administration is the one that advances the nomination. I mean, I guess
no. It's up to the Senate to confirm.
Right now, it's in the Senate. You're right. I apologize.
No, that's Eric. I've been thinking, Jesse and I have been talking about this, and I've come to the conclusion with Jesse, you should really go to law school because you're a very smart guy.
You really should, yeah. Here's the other thing, though. Damn, I just lost my train of thought.
Well,
sorry.
You've been hanging around with me too much.
Too much, yeah, exactly.
I know.
All right, so we're going to take a break, and hopefully we'll show you some documentary evidence to refresh your recollection. All right, this is Let the Record Show. We're going on a break. Please stay. Did you get it?
Yes, I did think of it.
Say it quickly so we can continue. Go ahead.
Always with yours, Your Honor. Here's the thing. I know this puts Senator Thune in a tough position, but that's what leadership's about. I mean, at one point or another, you're going to face these type of challenges. There's a natural yin and yang and a natural contention between the executive branch and the legislative branch, wherever you are, state government, local government, or federal government. So this is going to come at one point. Maybe you're saying it shouldn't come this early, but it's going to come. And this is, let's test this leader, who I believe is going to be a very strong leader.
He's great.
Senator John Thune.
It was an outstanding selection.
By the way, I think we all, listen, you had 3 very strong candidates.
Yes.
I know them all. I like them all.
Agreed.
But I think Senator Thune is the right man at the right time of history.
But his obligation is to the institution, not. So he has to do what's right by the Senate.
I think he's going to be a wonderful majority leader and a great leader for America. I'm a big fan of Senator John Thune, and I would have been happy with either Senator Scott or Senator Cornyn. But
Absolutely.
I think Thune is
3 great choices.
3 great choices. You couldn't pick a loser there. Any of the 3 would have been fine. Thune is the guy, and we wish him well because his success, as Jesse, you point out, is America's success. We'll take that break now. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us. We'll be back in a few moments.
This is Let the Record Show.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
All right, we are back with Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted commentator and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Before we get to international matters, I just want to point out one of the things which I don't think we have to worry about, at least for the next 2 years, is we don't have to worry about the Democrats under the leadership of Schumer.
Thank God.
And Harris as president pushing through a court packing scheme, nor do we have to worry about the filibuster. I don't think we have to worry about either of those two items. The filibuster will stay in place, and it will not be court packing. Now, let me propose the following as a good idea to deal with court packing so it never raises its ugly head again. Do a constitutional amendment providing that there shall be 9 justices of the Supreme Court subject to good behavior, which is a constitutional standard. So I think the constitutional amendment for 9 justices on the Supreme Court in perpetuity, subject to good behavior, is a way to get around a court packing scheme. It's time that that kind of nonsense proposed by Harris and Schumer and AOC and all the other people who destroy the framework of our constitutional democracy, having an independent judiciary, has to be put to rest. And the constitutional amendment is a way to do that. What are your thoughts, Eric?
I'm always very dubious of constitutional amendments. I kind of like the Constitution. You know, the Constitution only provides that there be a Supreme Court. It doesn't pick a number. And the amount of effort that's going to be and political capital that's going to be spent on doing that, I don't know if it's worth the candle. Look, it's clear that the Democrats wanted to pack the court, and it would have been much worse for the country had they succeeded. But remember, FDR tried to do it, he failed. The Democrats tried to do it, they failed. I'm not quite sure that they're going to have the ability to do it. And there are so many other serious questions facing the country that require our attention. I'm not quite sure I agree that it should be distracted or directed towards a constitutional amendment, just limiting it to 9 justices. I think the system has been working just fine till now, and it's more than coincidence that every time a president or a party, and FDR is the best example because it's hard to imagine a more powerful chief executive than what FDR was for his 4 terms, and he failed. So, look, if it passed, I'm all for it. That's great. It's just that it's going to require so much time and effort to get there, and we have other things we have to deal with.
Jesse, what are your thoughts on the proposed constitutional amendment?
Well, I would support something of that measure, but I think that Eric is right. I think that there are more pressing issues that need to be on this 2-year agenda for the president. Let's be honest, it's really a 1-year agenda because after this year, the legislature, the 33 senators and the entire House is going to be up for re-election. And, things are just going to slow down. I think that Trump and the Republicans who now control the House and the Senate need to put forward that America First policies on the border, on the economy, on inflation, on removing the woke systems of the ideology from our bureaucracies needs to advance forward before we go here. But one thing I wanted to just touch base on, don't you guys find it amazing that some of the same senators from Chuck Schumer's crowd who wanted to get rid of the filibuster about in the last 2 years were talking about the importance of keeping the filibuster? It's amazing how they
you say that as if you're surprised.
Yes,
no. Jesse's just reveling in the irony of it. That's what it is.
The hypocrisy is rank.
I guess
it's
the
unbelievable.
Crackerjack box they must have found his wisdom in.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's some real issues that affect real Americans, and not that the Department of Justice. I mean, that the judiciary doesn't, but we're talking about immediate actions that they can take. And I have to tell you, I do like some of the actions that Trump is announcing, allowing prayer back in school, allowing the Bible to be placed back in schools, if that's the choice of the will of the people in their localities. Removing this wokeism and moving forward with banning biological men from participating in women's sports, really protecting women here, protecting them in the locker rooms, protecting them in the bathrooms and such. I really do think that those are the issues he needs to take forward. And as we move forward, and one of the things, maybe I'm going to pivot here for a moment. I want to get your guys' impressions about this effort now to remove or encourage the retirement of Justice Sotomayor so that they believe that Biden and the Democratic majority in the Senate can replace Justice
she's
Sotomayor.
not going. She's already said she's not going anywhere.
No, but it shows the game.
Biden until he said he was.
Well, they were trying to do the same thing with Justice Breyer, and he said, "I'm not going anywhere." So
and Ginsburg too.
Right, and she said, "I'm not going anywhere." So exactly. Well, one of the great ironies, but on that point, just one of these great ironies, Donald Trump has what does he have? 3 justices on the Supreme Court.
Yes,
it is conceivable that he's going to get 2 more. I mean, if Alito and Thomas step down, now he has 2. He can have 5. When's the last time an American president had 5 justices of the Supreme Court selections? I mean, that'd be unbelievable. And if, God forbid, because we don't wish ill on anyone, something happens to, to Sotomayor or Kagan, and he gets a 6th, only because he lost in the middle 4 years. Although I did see this one great, brilliant cartoon. Democrats admit Trump won 2020 election, can't run for re-election in 24.
That's good. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. All right, let's switch gears, gentlemen. So let me submit to you for your consideration, as I used to say on the old Twilight Zone with Rod Serling.
Great show.
Great show. One of my favorites.
Best show.
But
Does Ava have music that can go along with this?
No, nothing beats the original Star Trek.
You know what, Jesse?
That's
Remind me.
right,
I'll get it played for us next week. How's that? So, this is what is interesting to me. January 20th is the date of inauguration, and yet, what Trump has been doing, the very election of Trump, the nominees they're starting to push forward on foreign policy, with the exception of Gabbard, okay, is sending out a message to the world, to the Europeans, to the Chinese, to the Russians.
Well, look what just happened in the Middle East. Look what
Right,
just happened.
that's what I want to get your thoughts on. It seems to me changes are already happening in anticipation of January 20th. Eric.
Well, it's more than interesting. So this past week, Hamas has announced that it is getting together with the Palestinian Authority to come up with a post-war plan to govern Gaza. How quaint. It's very sweet.
They're lovely people.
It's wonderful.
Lovely
That's
people.
great.
Lovely people.
And the reason that they were holding out so long is because they were rooting for Harris' presidency, because if she wins, Hamas survives and the Palestinian Authority is elevated. But now they've lost. Hamas is on the cusp of utter obliteration, and the Palestinian Authority, which is utterly corrupt, has no legitimacy amongst the Palestinian people. There is not a power on the planet there's not enough fairy dust in the world that's going to allow either Hamas or the Palestinian Authority or any combination thereof to have any role in governing Gaza going forward. But because Trump has won, they're now basically saying, okay, the war's over now. Let's see if we can, keep ourselves alive. Your only hope for doing that is to surrender and return the hostages. Until that happens, Israel has to keep on the pressure. Now, what are we hearing from Iran? Now, Iran, all of a sudden, they've decided that they may not retaliate against Israel. This is a big sign of magnanimity. And they waited till after Trump won. I mean, it's kind of like after Reagan won, they decided they'd give back the hostages. But let's remember who Iran is. And we've talked about this in the past. They're responsible for holding American hostages at the very beginning of the regime for 444 days. Reagan gets elected, they release them. They're responsible for murdering 241 Marines in Beirut. They're responsible for roughly 1/3 of the dead and wounded and American dead and wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan. And they are responsible for close to 300 attacks against American service members in Iraq and Syria since October 7th. But what else have they done recently? We learned from the Justice Department, in an unsealed indictment, that Iran has been actively trying to assassinate President Trump. These are all acts of war. And Iran is now coming to the conclusion that now that Trump won, oops, maybe we've gone a little too far. maybe we need to start ratcheting it back a little. We can't, and the Israelis, of course, now that they've retaliated, have wiped out all of Iran's missile defense, not just in Iran, but Syria and Iraq as well. Any American or Israeli attack against Iran has clear sailing in the skies. So it's amazing what an American election can do, the impact it can have all around the world, even before Donald Trump has stepped back into the White House. We already have Iran in retreat, Hamas in retreat, some of the Arab, the Palestinian Authority.
And what about Hezbollah?
Well, what I'm hearing now is that Netanyahu is, as an accommodation for Trump when he comes into office, he's trying to work out a ceasefire with Hezbollah. The Israelis have been successful in eviscerating Hezbollah leadership. Hezbollah wiping out most of their missiles, ballistic missiles that attack Israel.
What about that?
They've destroyed tunnels that would have enabled them to have an October 7th type of attack against northern Israel. Israelis that live in northern Israel and are starting to go back home. Hezbollah is effectively being pushed back north of the Litani River, consistent with UN Resolution 1701 that was put in place in 2006. So if they can work out a ceasefire that empowers the Lebanese military and other foreign troops to be able to keep Hezbollah at bay and to keep the zone between northern Israel and the Litani River demilitarized, I think that's doable. And then that way they can hand Trump peace, because this is a guy, as he will point out, I don't start wars, I end wars. And this would be a gift. This would be a gift to Trump that Netanyahu is trying to work out. Now, of course, it takes two to tango. And in a place like Lebanon, it really takes like 48 to tango, because you have so many sects, and political divisions. So, but it's a complex issue, but I think it's doable.
What about the Red Sea and the Houthis?
Well, I haven't been hearing too much about that, but what I would expect from Trump, which we did not get from Biden, is that we should be getting American plane. Look, part of the American-led world order is predicated on freedom of navigation of the seas. And the Houthis, with Iran's support, both militarily and politically, economically, has shut down all the shipping in the Red Sea, commercial shipping in the Red Sea, causing all commercial vessels to go around.
Totally inflationary.
It makes everything much more expensive, totally inflationary, but these are acts of war. I would expect that the Trump administration, unlike the Biden administration, will basically get our planes up in the air and just wipe them out. Just take out all their missile systems, take out their military bases, and open up the Red Sea. I mean, it's something that the Biden administration should have done. They could have done it with the Israelis, but we certainly should be doing it at least alone. NATO should be doing it with us, because Europe is dramatically impacted by this. Any shipping that comes out of the southern Europe in the Mediterranean has to go through the Suez Canal.
Now it can't. This is a question for both of you. First, Derek, and then Jesse. Should the United States now support, at this moment in time, action by the Israelis, backed by the Americans, to take out the nuclear sites in Iran?
Yes, and to me there are two options. One is that President Trump makes clear to the Israelis, he just picks up the phone and talks to Bibi, and says, "Look, if you attack the nuclear facility, I got your back. Go ahead. I'll let Biden do whatever Biden wants to do, but when I'm back in, you got my full support." He can do that. Same thing with their oil refineries and oil facilities. Now, some people say, well, you can't do that, then the price of oil goes up.
Too bad.
Well, we can't have it both ways. We can't criticize the Biden administration because they're not enforcing oil sanctions and secondary sanctions against countries like China that buy cheap oil, and then complain because we want them to stop shipping their oil, which would drive up the oil prices, and then complain, you'll drive up oil prices if the Israelis attack the oil facilities. Too bad. The Israelis, Richard Nixon was willing to take those slings and arrows in 1973 when he supported Israel in the Yom Kippur War and the Arabs imposed an embargo. So, too bad. It's perfectly legitimate. Or what I think would be the better choice, but I don't see this happening, if Trump lets Netanyahu know, when I get back in there, I'm going to put together a coalition, because remember, these are all acts of war by Iran against the United States. I'm going to put together a coalition led by the United States. We'll try to bring some NATO allies along, but we'll include Israel and some of the Sunni Arab states, and we will all together, attack the Iranian nuclear facilities and their oil facilities, and not a single boot on the ground, all from the air, all from naval vessels out at sea, and then we're going to let the Iranian people do the rest. But this regime cannot have a nuclear weapon, it can't have a nuclear program, and it can't sell oil. And if we do that as a coalition, it will guarantee the expansion of the Abraham Accords. It will bring about the end of the Arab-Israeli conflict. It will bring peace to the region. It will bring prosperity to the region. And it will tell the world, America is going nowhere. We are serious about the American-led world order. We are serious about Western civilization. And we are serious about standing with our allies. I think that would be the most effective approach. But at a minimum, let the Israelis do it and say bravo.
Jesse, your thoughts on this?
I agree, and I think that this is the time. And what I envision, I think with the Houthis, I thought I read somewhere. I guess let's begin from the start. I believe that there has been huge impacts in the Middle East and on the global stage of Trump's mandate and the size of his victory. He has a mandate to move forward. It's certainly a message, and we've seen it already. You've discussed it already. That there's a message that Israel has its partner back, full-throated, shoulder to shoulder in the United States. That's Trump's foreign policy, and it's also reflected in his appointments, whether it be Rubio, Governor Huckabee as the ambassador to Israel, Steve Witkoff, the Middle East envoys. And I believe what we're also going to see is that other countries, whether it be the EU, or whatnot, understanding and seeing that this partnership needs to come forward, because what I view, and just to go to the Houthis for a minute, I thought I read somewhere that the Houthis were ceasing operations since election. I could be wrong. But what I envision in seeing what other countries have been doing, whether it be American manufacturers saying that they're slowing down production in China and opening up more production in the United States following the election. What I'm seeing, and I remember, and maybe you guys remember this in our history books, that old that historic poster from World War II. It's the image of a towering Uncle Sam walking across in the waters towards Europe, and it's rolling up its sleeve. America's back. America leading this world order is back. America being the superpower is back with the election of Donald Trump. And our allies now know that we stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Our enemies now know that there will be consequences, immediate, and not talk. These are not about moving red lines. This is about immediate actions that will bring consequences to attacks upon American lives, and also the lives of our allies.
Jesse, I think that was very well said. I think that's exactly right. To use the term of art that we use amongst the three of us over and over again, the American-led world order is back. We understand the costs and the risks of appeasement. We're going to move forward. We're now in the business of governance. The political season of petty attacks and nonsense should be over. We have to reestablish a strong American economy. We have to reestablish American deterrence against the axis of evil. We have to confront our enemies and not appease them. We cannot buy them off. We have to give up the naive dream that if you're nice to our enemies, everything will be fine. No, if you're not nice to your enemies, it's a very bad cost to you if you don't accede to the responsible requests of America for world peace and international order. The time to work to reestablish world order and this clash of civilizations is now under the leadership of President-elect Trump. I believe with Eric and Jesse, we will get that in place. This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Thank you for listening. We look forward to being with you again next week on Let the Record Show. God bless you, God bless your families, and God bless America. Thank you.
This is Let the Record Show.